You might have noticed that this video is a little bit late, and that is because I've had some life stuff going on for the last couple of weeks and I just haven't had time to make a video. I actually have something like 6 videos in the pipeline in various stages of completion, but I just didn't have anything for this week. So I decided to make one of those random gear that I use and find kind of interesting, but isn't interesting enough to make a whole video about it. So here is the random gear that I use that I find very useful and isn't interesting enough to make a video about on its own. So first up on this pile of stuff, I suppose I'll talk about the big one, which is this gizmo right here. This is a home-built scanning frame that I'm working on. It's very nearly finished, it's about 90% done. It does work. It's built from extruded aluminium, it's been cut and bolted together. And the idea behind this was to produce a super strong, super sturdy, super precise scanning rig, and which can scan 35, 120 and 4x5 film using a cool scan lens that I have and a enlarger lens which has disappeared somewhere. In the same area as kind of scanning gear, I have this gadget, which is a Kinetronics Statback. This is a really unusual bit of gear because it's effectively 2 brushes with a fan that blows filtered air over it, so it knocks the dust off the film and then blows it off as well. But there's also like a static system in here that generates an electric field which discharges any static buildup on the film, which allows the dust to blow off much easier. I have found this to be somewhat effective. I haven't done any proper testing on it, so I can't tell if it's like super effective or not, but it does appear to work pretty decently, maybe. The idea behind this was to buy it, modify it with a quieter knock to a fan, although there's some voltage issues. This thing runs on 24 volts when it should be running on 12 for the fans. So we're going to have to like make a new power supply or something. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with this thing just yet, but the tentative plan is to somehow mount it here so that the film can be fed through it, through the negative supply holder and on through. So in other random stuff, this is a very interesting thing. I actually had this 3D printed during the week and I just got it off my friend today who done it for me. This is a 400 to 100 foot film respooler. So this is a thing you can find on Thingiverse. Obviously I had it printed. And the idea is that you can buy 400 foot rolls of movie film. So you could buy 400 feet of 500T or Ektachrome, pop it on here in the dark, put a core on, and then you can spool 100 feet off. So then you can put that 100 foot into a normal bulk loader and then you can roll that down into normal rolls of 35mm film. I believe it's currently the cheapest way to get colour film at the moment. I think the average price works out something like €6 a roll. So planning to get into bulk loading a lot of movie film very soon. And now I have the respooler set up. So slightly related to like, respooling and scanning is this. This is a Nikon DW4. This is a really interesting thing. It's the high magnification 6x loop for the f3. So this normally goes on the f3 where the prism goes, and then the idea is that you take this and you can look down through, and it's used for like doing duplication work and high magnification macro and stuff like that. It's for getting really precise focus. The other thing you can do with this is that it basically makes a really, really good loop for looking at slides and negatives on a light table, but also as a great loop for working with a 4x5 camera, because this has got some really high quality optical glass in here. It's a 6x magnification. It's a really nice bit of kit. It's really well built and it makes a great loop. So that's something else I've been kind of using. We've got 2 cameras here. The first one here is this little small one. This is an Olympus Pen FT. This is not mine. I'm only borrowing it to do a review on it. It's actually my friend's. It's a pretty cool little camera, half frame. Not going to say much more about that because I do have a video in the works for this. The other camera here is my main full frame DSLR camera, the D850, which is, in my opinion, the best DSLR camera ever produced. Hands down, not even questionable. Anyone else who questions this, I think I might actually have to physically fight you. It's just an insanely good camera. It's incredibly tough. I have brought this through insane weather and everything and out shooting, and it's never ever let me down. And the autofocus is just top tier. I might have to do a full review on this at some point because it is that good. And then related to film cameras as well, we have this little gadget here which I picked up a while back. This is the TT Artisan light meter. It's just kind of one of those standard light meters that a load of companies have, where you just take a reading and then you just twiddle the shutter speed until the light goes green. It's a bog standard light meter, to be quite honest. It's really useful though, because it's super small, and I actually use this quite a lot in Japan for the 4 weeks I was there, when I was metering for the GW690 with this a lot. And yeah, it works out great. I use it for the Pen F and any cameras that don't have a light meter. It's really good. Apart from the fact that the hot shoe nearly fell off it, so I had to actually buy a screwdriver in Japan to tighten it back down. But apart from that, nice little light meter. Hasn't given me any trouble yet. Next up, before we get to kind of the lenses, I want to talk about the quick release system I use, because I think it's absolutely top tier and it works really well. It is this bad boy, the Falcam F38 quick release system. It's an Arca Swiss compatible system, so these plates fit onto Arca Swiss clamps, but it is basically a knockoff of the Peak Design capture clip. However, it is infinitely better and more flexible to use. So it's very solid. It does have a locking ability, so you can lock the button that releases it so it can't be released accidentally. But the big advantage of this system is that it has a load of adapters for use on different things. So this is kind of your standard base clamp, and it has Arca Swiss rails. So you can put this into an Arca Swiss clamp it down, and then you've got a quick release plate for your Arca Swiss tripod or clamp or whatever you're using. They also make a bunch of different kind of adapters. So this is one that's designed to go on camera straps. Now this particular thing is actually just one of these that's been screwed into kind of a holder. And this one is on a camera strap, which is very useful. So when you have the camera strap on, you can just unclick the camera from it and then just hold the camera up, do your thing, put the camera back onto it. You don't have to deal with lifting the camera up and down, maybe gets caught in your backpack or something. So this is just a really nice, useful thing on the camera strap. I also have one here on my camera bag. So under the strap here, we've got one for attaching cameras to the side of the bag. There's also another one of these on my low pro bag, which is my main backpack, so I can just clip the camera on there when I'm walking about. I also have another one here on this gadget, which is the Nikon vlogging handle thing that I'm now using for filming. So I have a quick release plate on it here, and that makes it so that I can just clip my camera on and off the vlogging handle really, really easy. And that leads me to the vlogging handle. So this is the official small rig Nikon kind of conjunction vlogging handle they make. It's really nice because it has space for the Nikon remote, which just goes in there and it's held in magnetically. And then if you want to take it out, you just push in the corner and raise it out, because there's a little cutout here so you can just pop it out really, really easily. You know, it's a really nice little thing. It's kind of plasticky, but you can rotate the camera around. You can also rotate the handle back and forward, and it has, you know, locking positions. It's kind of your just bog standard vlogging remote handle. But it does have one cool party trick, and that is if we open up the tripod legs and take a look in the back where there's a hidden compartment, there's space for a hidden SD card for when you inevitably forget your SD card. So that's kind of neat. It's a little pricey for what it is, but it does the job and it works pretty well. And that leads me on to this lad in the back. This is the Crane M2S Gimbal. This is a very recent purchase. You haven't seen any footage from this yet, but it works fine, does the job. It holds up my main video camera, which I'll talk about in a second. But this does the job. It's really small, it's compact, fits easily in a bag, provides good smooth footage and all of that. You'll notice that I have a non-standard base plate on it here. This is the Ulanzi Falcam F38 base plate. I can just clip it on. The gimbal will be already pre-balanced and set up, and I can just immediately get some gimbal shots really easy, and this whole thing just fits nicely into my backpack or my messenger bag when I'm out filming. Okay, so to talk about what I film myself with, so my current filming camera, and I think it is the best vlogging outdoor filming camera currently available, or one of the best, is a Nikon Z30. So I actually bought this in Japan. I have the Sigma 18-35 1.8 f mount on it. It is an insanely good APS-C lens. I actually absolutely love this. This is what I've been filming myself with now for multiple months. It has never missed a beat. The footage comes out absolutely perfect every time. The eye tracking in video on the Nikon Z30 is absolutely top tier. It just doesn't fail. And with this, it's perfect. I've got the FTZ version 1 here with the tripod foot to take the weight, because this is actually quite a heavy lens and a very light camera. I also use the Rode wireless mic set, which is hooked up to it. Normally when I'm out filming myself, I actually don't use these because I'm not doing any speaking. And if I'm doing just sort of atmospheric sounds, I tend to find that the internal mics here on the top with the wind muffs that the camera comes with are just fine. So that's the camera I use to film myself. Nikon Z30, it's top tier. Footage is good, flat profile, easy to grade, 4K 24. What more do you want? And the last few things I've picked up are a few lenses. And to be honest, I haven't really bought many lenses in the last year. Most of the lenses I own are ones you've already seen or I've talked about in my Nikkor lens video or made individual videos on. But there are a few kind of interesting lenses. So the first one is honestly, it's not interesting at all. This is the kit lens for the Z30 and Z50. It's the 16 to 50. It's a little small lens. It's super light. It's super plasticky. Has a plastic lens mount. But the image quality and the VR on this is actually top tier. And I use this when I'm out filming. This is the lens that has to go on the Z30B when it goes on the gimbal because it's pre-balanced for it. I also have this little small 52mm variable ND filter on it for out and about filming. I really like this lens, although it's going to get replaced with that new Nikkor DX power zoom. They just announced the 12 to 28. I think it's an f3.5 to 5.6 lens, and that'll handily replace this. I probably won't use this very much at all once I get my hands on that lens, because it's small, light, wide angle, good VR, and it should make for a very good sort of out and about filming and vlogging lens. The next lens I'm going to talk about here is the Voigtlander Nocton 58mm 1.4 f-mount SL2 lens. It's a bit of a mouthful, but this is essentially an AIS lens with electronic contacts for the Nikon f-mount. It's a manual focus lens and I absolutely love it. I bought this lens in Osaka for like 280 euros and it is just an absolute top tier bit of optical perfection, this lens. I got it brand new. I love using this on any of my film cameras. I'm never disappointed with any images. I actually used this quite a bit on the D850 on that trip as well. And you'll see that in the upcoming video on the trip, but man, this lens is just mind-bendingly good. Like, you stick a bit of 500T into my Nikon F and shoot Tokyo on this, and those images came out great. So it's probably one of my favorite manual focus lenses ever. I am maybe planning to get their new 50mm f1.2, or it might be a 55mm 1.2 they announced recently. That's coming out later this year. So I'm really looking forward to getting one of those, and maybe even the 40mm f2. There's a bunch of really good Voigtlander f-mount lenses that I want. The next lens is one I also picked up in Tokyo, very cheap, in Nakano, in Fujiya camera. This is the Nikon 24 to 120 f4G VR ED AFS nano crystal coated, oh my god, what the fuck, BBQ lens. Yeah, I bought this lens mostly because I really miss having a general purpose travel zoom lens. So back when, a few years ago, when I had the Sony a7 III, when I bought that camera, I actually also bought a 24 to 105 f4, the Sony G version, and I absolutely love that lens. It's such a useful focal length when you're traveling, f4 constant aperture. This has vibration reduction or image stabilization in the lens. This is Nikon's f-mount version. I got this secondhand for like 290 euros, I think, with all the tax discounts you can get as a foreigner when you're in Japan. So it's just a really nice, useful lens. It's got a bit of weight to it, but you know, it's a 24 to 120 constant aperture zoom. It's kind of going to have that. I believe Nikon's Z-mount version of this is supposed to be absolutely incredible. If I get a high-end Z-mount camera, I'll honestly probably end up buying it anyway, the Z-mount version, and keeping the F-mount version. Really goddamn useful. You know, they're not the most perfect lenses. There are sharper zooms. You can get 2.8 zooms. This one has a little bit of a CA issue, particularly at f4. If you stop it down to 5.6, it goes away quite a bit. I picked one up because I really miss not having one. And it's funny because for the last week of the trip when I had this lens, I used it exclusively. Like, that was the only lens on my camera. I stopped using the primes I was using all trip, and I just ended up using this for the rest of it. So all like my Mount Fuji shots are shot on this. And then the final thing to talk about here is this lens. And It is the 85mm f2.8 Nikon tilt shift lens, or in Nikon terms, their perspective control or PC lens. This is an extraordinarily interesting lens. It's my very first ever tilt shift lens, and I've always wanted a tilt shift after getting into 4x5. The idea of having movements on like a digital camera just is incredibly appealing to me, because once you get used to movements, you can't not use them anymore. It gets really frustrating when you don't have them. So I've been wanting to buy some tilt shift lenses, and this is my first one. It's their macro lens. It's kind of meant for like product and food photography and that kind of stuff. The reason I bought this was because I didn't want to jump straight in the deep end and get a super expensive tilt shift. I managed to get this second hand for like 700 quid total, including postage, from MPB. So if any of you were spying on one of these lenses in MPB, I ended up buying it. And I suppose that's it for this video. I've just spent the last ages just talking your ears off about random gear I own, but this is all of it. All my recent purchases, acquisitions that are not interesting enough for their own video, but are kind of interesting, and maybe they might solve some problems for you if you're aware of them. So that's it. See you next time.